Hello guys, just a couple of days ago my hometown experienced the largest Russian attack. For you to have a clear imagination of what happened, I will let you know that the population of my city is approximately 250,000 people, and it's not large comparing to many Ukrainian cities. It does not have any priority military production sites or anything like that, and located like 80 kilometers away from the European Union border. So compare this kind of city or town with your city or town and imagine that during the 3 hours of night, Russia targeted us with 5 Kinjal missiles and with more than 50 Shahed drones. It was a challenge for our air defense systems, and it is not going to be a secret if I tell you that, of course, priority cities like Kyiv or some production sites or air bases have a better air defense system than an ordinary city somewhere on the periphery of the front lines. So I am very grateful to our air defense team that managed to stop the majority of the Shahed drones, and this time there were no victims. A month ago they targeted Lutsk, killing 2. And here we all understand that this strategy of Putin unfortunately will continue. If you want to understand why, watch the video on this channel that I connect here. But the most important thought that we keep during the days after such attacks is, what is victory? How do we win this war? Because every Ukrainian and every citizen of other countries that were once unfortunate to be a part of the Soviet Union or the Russian Empire knows that the only way to end this war is to end the Russian Empire. Subscribe to witness that together. Please share these videos if you share my opinion and to demonstrate your solidarity with Ukraine. That's the easiest but very effective way. And many may say, but Russian Empire ended its existence in the beginning of the 20th century. And I will say no, it changed the name. Because the Soviet Union was also a very imperial project, denying the cultural heritage, the cultural and historical difference of those countries that they swallowed. So what we may say is that the Russian Empire, the Soviet Union, the Russian Federation, whatever you call it, is centered around the idea of this imperial power and lots of colonies that depend on it and need to provide resources to the Kremlin. And the only way to achieve lasting peace in Ukraine, in the world, in Russia, in Europe, is to end this project. And it is very possible. It's not just possible. The majority of intellectuals, not just in Ukraine, but around the world, agree that this process has already started. It is irreversible, and you don't have to be afraid of it, because this dissolution of the Russian Empire actually has already happened in some stages, and right now we observe the final stage. For me to persuade you, I will remind you about that revolution, the end of the Russian Empire, when, for example, Finland became independent and Poland went out of this clause of Moscow and St. Petersburg. Then in 1991, when the Soviet Union collapsed, a lot of new, I cannot say new countries, a lot of old countries got their new independence, like my Ukraine, like the Baltics. And many of these countries succeeded and are incomparably better than Russia. I mean, in the economic point of view, in the social life point of view, in the political culture. Some of them are members of the European Union and NATO. Congratulations, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. And Ukraine, even in times of war, is freer, better, safer from this, mental point of view place than the Russian Federation. Unfortunately, many forget about these stages and always visualize that the collapse of the Russian Federation will result in something awful to the rest of the countries literally in every corner of the world. No, if this process is controlled, it can actually guarantee security to the United States, to Canada, to the European Union. On my main channel, Anna from Ukraine, I had an excellent interview with the great Ukrainian intellectual and also a head of the decolonization NGO, what a beautiful name, Valery Pekar. I connected here. Watch and you will see that actually for a safer world, we need this dissolution of Russia. Also, many of you good people are still looking for the good Russians. To be politically correct, I have to say that, of course, in every country there are good people, but they do not exist as a political category. They do not exist as a social movement. You cannot see any serious efforts coming from Russia or coming from Russians outside Russia to defeat the Kremlin evil and to end the imperial character of this country. Artificial country that actually consists of 21 different national republics. And it's not just the 21, because many beautiful nations are now suppressed and hidden between different states. So the number can actually be very, very different. Here in Ukraine, we often joke that the best way to test a good Russian is to ask him whose Crimea is, to whom Crimea belongs. And this is, for example, a question that always fails to answer properly Navalny and Navalny, who kept speaking that it is a part of Russia. Also, if you are not that Ukraine-focused, ask them, for example, about Chechnya. Obviously, right now, after 2 awful wars, this country is suppressed under the Kremlin. They have this fake puppet, Kadyrov, who will perhaps pass the power to his son. And he does not represent the interests of Chechen people. And Chechen people do not identify themselves as Russians. But the majority of these classical Muscovites will tell you that Chechnya is Russia. So do test people around you coming from Russia, speaking badly, for example, about Putin with the question, to whom Crimea belongs. Very often they fail to answer it properly. So another thing that becomes more and more popular, at least among intellectuals, is to describe Russia as an empire. And here I may hear a lot of you saying that, well, my country was an empire, and we can enumerate a lot of empires in the 19th century or at the beginning of the 20th century. But here is a great difference between your imperial history and the Russian imperial present. Well, first of all, it's history for you and it's present for Russia. Then second, your empires dissolved, stopped existing. And maybe there were bad pages of history for sure. There were bad attitudes towards indigenous peoples. It goes without saying. But you speak openly about that in your history classes, in your books. You actually attract people's attentions to those scenes. You ask for forgiveness for that. You revise that history and look from a different perspective. And in Russia, they keep saying that's exactly what is right. They keep glorifying the destruction of whole nations like Cherkessy. Pushkin, the greatest Russian poet, was actually glorifying that and describing the bloodshed they did. And exactly same verses they use when writing on the walls of the temporarily occupied Ukrainian flats. That's what Ukrainian researchers and journalists found. They actually look for excuse in their literature, in their history, and their presidents, their professors, their writers tell them, you are right destroying these nations. You are right, destroying their histories. So please see this great difference. First of all, not many of you come, but those of you who come from countries with imperial history, now you speak about it from a different perspectives, and Russians keep restoring it. And They keep using, the resources, they keep using people. And here I want to give you very important examples of why Russia is still very imperial in its nature, because it lives using the resources of its colonies. It treats Tatarstan, Chechnya, the Sakha Republic as its colonies because, let's be realistic, there are no natural resources around Moscow, St. Petersburg. But Moscow and St. Petersburg as cities have the largest budgets. The richest people live there. The best roads and apartment buildings are built there. Where do they get this money? Right from republics that look very poor, very miserable right now, very depressive. Why? Because they suck all of their money out to the Kremlin. Also, that is a pretty sad aspect of this war, and I do blame these people. I'm not trying to understand them. But if you look at the Russian soldiers fighting on the front lines in Ukraine, the majority of them come from these different national republics. And why? Because they are super poor. Because they do not defend this Russian mir or ideology. Don't buy these lies. They are here to loot and earn money because the Kremlin sucks resources from them. They get poor, they don't have work, even though they should have it, but they don't. And then they join these armies to loot, rape, and steal. And this resembles the end of the Soviet Union with the very unnecessary Afghanistan war, where Ukrainians also participated because they were a part of the monstrous Soviet Union. Another problem that you have to understand, Russia's plan as this dying empire is to invade a nation, then use the resources of this nation together with its people and move on to invade others. That is the plan that they have for Europe, I guarantee you 100%. But if Europe is under Putin's control, I'm sure that's bad for the United States too, and for Argentina. Subscribe to demonstrate your solidarity and to spread the truth around the world. That is super important. And yes, I have a list of things that I don't want to forget to tell you. So, I am really happy to recognize a lot of symptoms of these terminal processes inside this monstrous Frankenstein of the Russian Federation. And many wise people, philosophers, psychologists, when analyzing the history of former empires, say that many of these processes may develop for a very long period of time and seem really slow, really pale. And then, after a very important trigger, empires always collapse very quickly. Once again, if you look back in the history of your countries, this happened during years, not during centuries. So we just need a trigger, something similar as it was at the end of the USSR. And something similar is happening. Once again, watching that interview of Valery Pekar in Ukrainian for another channel, I was surprised to learn about those elements that actually keep the empire together. And it's very logical. First of all, money. Money, all these oligarchs present in different parts of the Russian Federation, they are super connected, super dependent on each other. But we all know Russia is running out of money. The inflation is really high. Even people super obedient to Putin speak openly about the recession. The minister of the Russian economy pronounced the phrase recession of the Russian economy in the presence of the Kremlin goblin. Then the head of the central bank speaks about the exhausted resources. We see that ruble is just rubble. So money is no more that component that held everything together. Okay, fear. But you might have noticed that countries that were previously on the orbit of the Kremlin, like Azerbaijan, Armenia, they see Russia is weak and they finally break free from that influence. Russia did not manage to help Iran. Russia did not manage to help Syria. So smart people realize there is nothing to fear. There is nothing to fear. And for example, during that short Prigozhin mutiny, when he marched to Moscow, there were no condemnations, no addresses from the governors, nothing. People were observing what will happen. And if Prigozhin managed, for example, to withdraw, to throw away Putin from the Kremlin, they would not fight for Putin. Please understand this about empires, about dictatorships. Nobody naturally protects this evil. But they keep choosing now. And there is something special about the Russian mindset that you need to watch and see more in the video that I connect here to. So, money, no money. Fear, well, like with each day, Putin's weakness is exposed. He does not control borders. He does not control airspace. He does not control strategic objects. Air defense is failing. And Xi Jinping does not take him as a serious partner. He simply funds Russia's problems. So, and then empires can be held together by common, identity. Well, in Russia, it's not the thing. In Russia, there are a lot of nationalities, a lot of languages, a lot of religions. And what is bad, Moscow disrespects and undermines all that. They never speak well about diversity, about differences. They describe people in, three categories. Serhiy Sumlenny recently spoke about that in his lecture for the European Resilience Initiative, when there are Russians, there are foreigners, and there are non-Russians. And oh my God, that is not a good vocabulary. That is not a vocabulary of not just a democratic country, but at least a humane country. So they don't have a common identity. That's absent. Maybe some of you think that Russia all consists of very similar people. That is wrong. That is just because you don't know enough about Russia. Do learn, Google, read, but not the Russian sources, of course. And another thing is common ideology. But I'm sorry, even the Soviet Union had its monstrous ideology. And modern Russia does not have any. Their ideology is let Putin steal everything. He boasts, perhaps in his, narrow circles, that he is the richest person. That might be actually the reason why Donald Trump likes him so much, because he knows that Putin, is the richest. But making Putin rich cannot be the ideology of like 140 million people, even if it seems like that. So I think that more and more nations that are now trapped within this very artificial project, observing the Ukrainian resilience, the way we fight for our freedom, watching how Putin uses their people as resources to send to the front lines and meat grinders, I'm sorry. If he had to mobilize people from Moscow or St. Petersburg, he would think twice. And he shows a totally different attitude to people from different republics. The resources, they are exhausting, and these are resources not from Moscow. Once again, in Moscow, they only keep oligarchs. And I'm sorry, people who steal these resources. But real resources come from Sakha, Tatarstan, Siberia. But people there do not feel it. And they do not control their future. They do not control the future of their children. They do not control the future of their towns and cities and streets. And that must be a very disgusting feeling. We do not control our future in Ukraine because Russian missiles target our cities every night, even such unimportant as mine. But on this internal field, we do control our future. We control people that we elect as our representatives. We change the names of our streets if we want. We build, we think, like we have freedom to determine our future. And Russians, those trapped inside the Russian Federation, cannot. And I believe that more and more will feel dissatisfied. And stop being afraid of this process because it's natural. Empires do not survive in the 21st century. They dissolve. And if you are afraid that this tremendous, rotting, bad-smelling Frankenstein can fall and, hurt us, we also think about that. We are really close to this falling monster. But for it not to collapse, leading to a lot of ruble everywhere, our task is to be prepared and to make this process smooth and not to be surprised that it's coming, to think about that. And we will be surprised how many smart, interesting people with non-imperial mindset actually live, dream in those republics. And it's a problem of the Soviet propaganda, of the Russian Empire propaganda, that many of us think, oh, they don't have real history, they don't have real language. That is exactly what the world thought about Ukraine. And now I hope, I pray that you see this tremendous difference between Ukraine and Russia. You do not equate us, and you also discover our long history, our bright culture. And Chechens have it. Buryats have it, Chuvashs have it, Tuvins have it, Udmurts have it, Yakuts have it, and many, many more. And the world will be a safer, brighter, and more interesting place. And the prices on gas may be cheaper. And if you're afraid that a dictator can then control the nuclear weapons, I had bad news for you. The crazy dictator already controls them in Moscow. Please share this video and let me know what are the other topics you'd like to discuss on this channel. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons, and helping me film for now 2 channels. And I'm so proud you give me this opportunity. Check the merch shop. The link is then in the description of the video, and also follow me on other social media. You'll find the links here. But most importantly, thank you for being friends of mine and friends of Ukraine. United we stand. Slava Ukraini!